Okay, hi everybody. Thanks so much for joining us. These webinars have been a bunch of fun over the last year, and we've had a lot of fun doing it in all kinds of different topics. This one is specifically for Block Island Race Week. I suspect everyone on this call is going to be at Block Island Race Week. I personally cannot wait to get to that island. It's my happy place. I'm actually hoping there's a lay day because I love the island so much and banging around and going to the beaches and hikes. It's one of my favorite places to sail and not sail. So can't wait to get there. Getting into it though, tonight we are gonna talk a few different topics. The main topic I think we're gonna cover the most in depth is current and strategy tactics for the Around the Island race. We're gonna talk about a few tips just for getting the ball rolling. Block Island is a bit of a logistical challenge for obvious reasons. Getting there, ferries are the hardest thing in the world. Getting everybody back and forth, getting cars and transportation and all that stuff is hard. But we're gonna give you a few tips as far as the regatta is concerned. And if you have any questions, please use the chat box. We're gonna be looking at the chat box and getting to those questions as we can. Some of them might be covered in the next slide or something. So if you don't hear an answer right away, Will Welles is gonna manage that for us. So by all means, ask away, and we will do our best to answer all the questions. All right, tonight's presenters, me, of course, in my favorite picture in the world after eating and drinking in Lisbon for 4 days. Thanks, Laura, for picking that one. I think I've done every Block Island Race Week since '93 or something like that. Henry's Little from Rhode Island is joining us. Henry has done probably every offshore race on the planet, has sailed on the East Coast for the last, I don't know, Henry, 20 years or so?
Yeah, putting it easily, right. Well,
Jack Orr, Connecticut is joining us. Jack has done offshore, inshore, one design specialist, a little bit of a jack of all trades. Didn't mean that pun, sorry. But as in-depth knowledge of Block Island, has done it a million times as well. And last but certainly not least, Will Welles, one design and big boat expert, two-time J24 world champion. Is that right? The two-time? I won't even mention how many right. North American type stuff you've probably won in the process. Anyway, all right, jumping right into it. The hardest part, like I said before, is just getting there and getting organized and getting the boat there. And you know, the boats have drama getting there. The trailers have drama. It's always fun. The hardest thing I find, and this is true for Block Island, but probably for any regatta these days, is getting all these online crew waivers signed. The trick I learned from the guys on Blazer was to simply, when your email goes out for filling out your waivers, just make the last one that puts in their waiver responsible for the first round of drinks on your island. And that seems to do a pretty good job of getting everybody engaged. JR, if you're on the call, I just filled it out, so I wouldn't be part of that problem right now. I filled it out this afternoon. We're good to go. Quick look at the notice of race. Obviously, scratchy sailing instructions are not posted yet. Any of the sailing instructions or things we're talking about going through the slides and the racing are from the 2009 sailing instructions, just an FYI. But in the notice of race this year is a no changes to your certificate, to your ORC certificate after June 14th. So if you're going to change sails, if you're adding sails, if you have new sails on order, make sure all those things are on your certificate the week before at least. And trust me, do it sooner. There's a lot going on for this event for sure. The performance crews, double-handed, +1. You're all going to sail solent racing or distance racing. That doesn't necessarily mean around the island every day, but you're going to be ping-ponging generally around government marks. One question I don't have answered entirely yet is weigh-ins, and I put in weigh-in tactics because if you're a class that has to weigh in, it's a lot of fun to get there on Saturday and have a good time, and then you got to go weigh in on Sunday morning, and that's generally not a good idea. Jack, did you tell me that the J109 class is not going to have an actual?
No, they're not. They're just going to do a crew number. Luckily, anybody that's sailing on J109s doesn't have to worry about that. I don't think there'll probably be any classes that actually weigh in because there's no championship events. So
Yeah, and with COVID and social distancing, I can't imagine they're going to have people weighing in like the old days right now. So
I believe the ORC is going to be the honor system as well.
Right. Anyway, if your class does have a tactics, just weigh in first thing in the morning. If you don't weigh in, go sailing, hold the water, hold the food, hold everything. Weigh in after sailing. That usually does the trick when you're over by a little bit. This is a change. It's a change definitely from last year too, but a big change for the rule is the sailing instructions say that the sails may change day to day, but not after leaving the dock. In the old days, for instance, if let's say Wednesday was the around the island race, in IRC, you're technically not allowed to change sails under IRC unless the sailing instructions said otherwise. But oftentimes you'd see boats putting their reaching sails on and off for the race when technically under IRC in years past, you weren't supposed to.
And one design classes won't allow changes in sails. Like basically you'll want to register what sails you're going to use in the regatta, and you can't use your, heavy air main, delivery main in case it gets windy on the around the island race if you're sailing a J88 or a J109. So
Right.
But so one design classes are going to have to stick with their class, declared sails.
Good point. Support boat contact. Again, this is in the NOR. You can have a support boat, but you can't have contact with support boat once you leave the dock. So sails, sandwiches, lunch, everything needs to be on your boat. In years past, you could do whatever you wanted with swap sail, whatever it is you wanted to do. Can't do that anymore. Bottom cleaning I have in here for everyone on this call who has done a Block Island Race Week. You know this already, but if you haven't, the bottom cleaning thing is a bit of a challenge. Well, not a challenge, but it takes coordination. You can't clean your boat in the basin, so you have to go outside and right off to the northeast, to the east. When you go out of Great Salt Pond, you'll see a bunch of moorings set up and the dive boats are there. I believe they send out information with the race packets on how it all works and how to pay for it and contacts and all that. But it's first come, first serve. You kind of queue up for the moorings that are there. And if you think you're going to do it in a leisurely way on your way out to the race course by leaving 5 minutes early, you'll probably fail. So get out early if you want to get your bottom cleaned. Do it on the way in the night before, or in a perfect world, you have a boat captain and they can take it out for you and get it done and then come back and collect the crew. But it is no easy challenge, so just have a plan going for that.
It should be said also, Tom, that it's not allowed inside the salt pond. So if you plan on doing it yourself, you still have to go through a certain amount of logistics.
Right, yeah, you can't clean the bottom inside.
You can't clean your bottom inside the salt pond for ecological reasons.
All right. What Will Welles is going to do is sort of talk through his day and what he does with his teams and how he preps. And I'm going to leave the rest to you, Will.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. Yeah, it turns out my colleagues think I like my routines and I'm pretty organized. I'm not sure about that on a day-to-day basis, but definitely when it comes to sailboat racing, I like my routines and I like to, stick with it every day, and it seems to work. So a lot of this stuff is, things that all of you probably already do and think about, but it's always worth touching on them again. I think a good routine will make a Block Island Race Week experience that much better. There's definitely lots of little items that it takes to get a boat off the dock and to the race course and back to the dock at the end of the day and put away and ready for the next day. So You know, all boats have different numbers of crews and stuff, but I've always thought dividing and conquering, you know, spreading the load, many hands make for light work is a good thing. And it keeps everyone engaged. It keeps the morale up in the team, doesn't let one person feel like they're doing more than the others. So, you know, there's lots of things to do, you know, the bottom cleaning, who deals with that, the lunches, water, you know, plenty of water, making sure there's not too many things on the boat, you know, extra gear and stuff, you know, running the spinnaker gear and things like that, making sure you've got all the sails that you need on the boat for that day, you know, prepping the sails, packing the spinnakers, et cetera, just spread the load and you know, keep the morale high and you know, blitzing it as a team and that way you can get to enjoying that island life that Tom was talking about earlier. It is a beautiful island. It's a really cool spot in the world. And it's nice to maximize your time, you know, while you can on the island. You know, one big thing is, you know, debriefing at the end of the day. You know, every team I sail with, I really like to do that. I know it's a fairly common practice. A nice time to do that is, you know, you finish the last race and sails down, you get everything buttoned up, all the gear into the boat, and you know, pull everyone back to the cockpit. You know, maybe you have a beer on the way in or what have you, and just kind of run through the day, what worked, what didn't work, what needs to be changed for the next day, what the plan is for the next day. It's always nice when everyone on the boat knows what the plan is and executes it. So I think that's key. It's always worked for me, and you know, a fun boat is a happy boat, and when you're having fun, you typically do well too. So looking forward to seeing many of you at Block Island Race Week this year.
Well, question for you on your debriefs. Let's assume you're on a bigger boat. Well, what are you doing? A Swan 42, I think you're racing.
This year, yeah.
10, 11 people on board. Do you get input from the bow? Do you get input in the debrief from every person and ask how their day went, what could do better? Or do you sort of quarterback it? And
I think you got to have one person that you know, leads, quarterbacks it, and like you said, and leads the meeting. You know, whether that's the skipper, the navigator, or the tactician, or whoever, team leader in the boat. But it's important to go around the circle, and everyone has a voice on the team, and needs to have a voice. So I think it's important to go around the team and just see what worked, what do they need more, what do they need less of. And you know, the cool thing about sailing is there's always things to learn no matter what level you're at, and it keeps us all coming back. So it's cool.
Thanks. Well, one thing I want to add, with now that we're not sailing IRC and we're sailing ORC, and we can change sails from day to day, and this also includes PHRF. If you have a forecast that doesn't go over 12 knots, you don't need your heavy jib on board. You don't need your heavy spinnakers. So make sure you only have what you need on board. And that's part of this prep that Will's talking about, is have your morning briefings and what sails are you going to take? What sails can you leave on the dock? And that'll keep the boat as light as possible for the conditions. All right, next up we have Henry, and Henry's just going to go over what I know we're all going to do on Sunday, bright and early, because we're all going to be ready and we're going to get out and do a little practicing. Henry, why don't you take it from there?
Well, this is largely a follow-up on what Will was talking about. I would recommend getting a 2-day practice session in, if at all possible. Obviously, you've got logistics and housing and ferries, as Tom was mentioning, and everything else. If in fact you can get 2 days that will limit a blowout or a fog out or something like that, and actually get some progress made in these practice sessions. I've had limited amount of success with these things based upon, you know, crew members getting out there in time and having a full gang, blowouts, fog outs, that kind of thing. but as a simple outline, you want to treat your practice days like you treat a race day. As Will was describing, having a set system of tasks allows things to happen straight out and get you into the racing mode straight away when you get off the dock. The first couple of mornings when you're out there, when there's not a race, if you treat them like race days, you'll be better off for it when Monday rolls around and they start keeping score. Typically, you go through your morning, I would go through your morning drills as far as all the equipment in shape, the right sails on board. I would collect a forecast and a tide forecast, just as you would on a race day. So you know what sails you're going to use and that kind of thing. Set up the rig tune and set up the sails, spinnakers, and headsails that you would be planning on using for that day, rather than try to make it up as you go along. Also important that you have every possible person there. So everybody's in place and in places that will be during real race mode. First thing that we would do is run a windward leeward. I would not be too concerned about a start, but set yourself a weather mark and tack up wind, go around the top mark, practice a set, practice a few jibes downwind. Always have a navigator in place who's keeping track of tide flow and ley lines, etc. Always concentrate on boat speed, sail trim settings, crew weight settings. Basically get yourself going as fast as you possibly can. I know a lot of you have probably not done a whole lot of racing before this event starts, so these things are really important. Remember the settings that you have, and always and duplicate them, and always be trying to go faster and faster as you go. Bottom mark, kite down, race mode, full speed. Get the boat going back upwind, take a couple of tacks, and stop, and do a debrief after the one loop. A short one, but basically allow everybody to make comments about how their area of the boat worked, what will work better. You'll make mistakes. You want to walk your way through those and debrief them and solve them for the next time around. I would again do the same thing once again. Go up around the top mark, do a different kind of spinnaker set, different more jibes, a different kind of leeward mark rounding. Take the kite down, couple of tacks, debrief. Possibly practice packing the spinnaker while underway. And then debrief again. It allows everybody to take a deep breath and say, okay, this is where we screwed up. I think that if you screw up during these things, solve them in a race mode and talk about them after. In other words, pretend to be sure that you're racing the whole time during these maneuvers. Solve if you have a kite problem or a jib problem or a tack problem, override problem, that kind of thing. Solve it in a race mode and then talk about it in a debrief. Don't stop and start again. Jibe sets, tacks. Always thinking about boat speed. I think the navigator should be working at all times. Ley lines are important. Tide sets. You can start to get a feel for what it's like on the race course for the true racing mode. Always be keeping an eye on all of those things. For those of you in the green fleet and for around the island racing, there are things to know about to practice headsail changes, reaching sails, their leads, changing to and from straight line changes and round the mark changes for reaching sails and different custom downwind sails back and forth. Do it around as you round marks and straight line practices find the leads for your code zeros, your A3s, your outboard leads, et cetera, et cetera. Those of you guys that are racing One Design sales, as you get to the Round the Island race and you're racing with One Design sales for there, it's wise to know the top and bottom angles for One Design sales.
Good point.
If you're sailing with a big One Design runner around the island, imagine that you're racing around a circle. So basically you have to know when to set and when to take the thing down at what angles. Same thing with outboard leads on One Design headsails, reaching leads, that kind of thing. Know those angles and know when to change as things change when you do a distance race with One Design sails. Lastly, always a good thing to talk about safety. And it really is a conversation here. It's not an offshore race, but have a man overboard plan, and also probably designate somebody on board as a medic. A wise idea. That's about all I have for practice. If you can get everybody there on time, that's.
Thanks, Henry.
Yep.
All right. Sailing in the fog is going to happen to you at Block Island. It will be very rare if it doesn't. And I think Henry brought this up the other day when we were talking. Navigator courses, bigger boats, everybody has a navigator or at least a competent person, but make sure your boat has an assigned navigator that understands the marks, understands your computer, and putting them in whatever GPS you might have or your system. Plot your starting circle when they're posted and ping it when you get there. Ping your marks, ping your finish. 2019, we were going in and out of the fog and the top mark disappeared, bottom mark disappeared, and I did not have good electronics that day because the battery was dying. And so you want to have all this stuff in your computer so you know where you're going. Also, through the Around the Island and Navigator stuff, just have all of that stuff in. Spend the afternoon, spend tomorrow on whatever it is on the boat, and get these things in your GPS now, because it takes a little bit of time and you can save yourself some grief in the morning. This came up before, and as far as logistics go, the airport can be a dangerous place for your crew to come in and out, especially if they're coming in Saturday or Sunday morning, if they're gonna do the Rockstar fly-in. Block Island airports can shut down for days, so encourage ferries. This is just marks of the course, Solent and Pursuit races from 2019 around the island courses, and just have all this stuff in your computer ahead of time. It's going to save some grief. MarkBots. I've never sailed with MarkBots, but we've all seen them. We've all heard about them. I'm kind of excited about them. The one, not a dig, and this is not coming from experience, but the one comment I heard is, I wonder how they're going to do in big sea and big breeze. So if they're using them and you're offshore and you're in a windy day, make sure you ping the top and bottoms, and you make sure you know where the mark at least used to be if they start moving around. Don't know, just be aware and have someone ping. All right, now the fun stuff. And guys, help me out here. And the Around the Island race, we've done 2 Around the Island races in 1 week in the not so distant past. So it's something to be prepared for, especially on windy days, they like to do it. For the purpose of this conversation, we are going to assume that we're going to sail around the island counterclockwise, which is the usual way we do it. We're going to assume the wind is southwest, which is the usual way we do it. And for the sake of this conversation, we're always in foul current. Every side of the island has its own factors, and we're going to go through each corner here and try to cover as much as we can as to what history has taught everyone that's on this panel today about the race. There's some, it's really fun, strategic, scenic racing at that. So let me see, last time around in 2019, each division started in its own circle, not so much a gang start. I don't know what will happen this year, but I bet it'll be something similar. Also 2019, and even though I thought I read the rules, the sailing instructions 10 different times, the finish was between 2, what I think are catamarans. It was between 2 boats. There was no mark set up, and it took me quite some time to figure out what was going on. The wind farm is out here. The wind farm is on the course sheet. Last time around, they sent big boats, TP52 type boats around the wind farm as part of the course. I've never done it. Probably won't do it if you're not in one of those big boats, but just be aware that it is there. I think if you're in the navigator type classes, you'll probably see those, and I can't wait to. I've never gotten near them yet. All right, start and southwest corner. Block out, here's the entrance to Great Salt Pond. The starting circles will generally be out here and around here. They're gonna set, well, they should set, always set a windward mark to sort of spread everything out. Then your next mark, well, here, but technically this is your next mark down here. This is R4, I think. And in foul current, the first thing you're gonna do when you're out here is try to get out of this current. What are you gonna do? You're gonna head to the shore. You're gonna get into the shallow water. There are also nice little lifts along here as you play the shifts. The closer you get in, you can ride this. This is a mark of the course. So as you're playing this shore, you generally get some nice long starboard tack runs at this. With the current flowing out of here, your next mark is R4, and you're gonna wanna sort of approach this as late as you possibly can. It's okay to overstand, say on starboard, because once your face gets out here and you're in the max current, you're going to get hit hard and you're going to get set quick. So don't be afraid to overstand, assuming you're going to be set and constantly trying to get down to the mark.
Yeah, and Tommy, like we were talking about the other day when we were going over this, that mark, like if there's 2 choke point marks in the course, like where there's a lot of traffic, and you just got to be really careful about how you go around the mark, because there's always going to be a crowd there, particularly if it's lighter breeze. That mark, you know, to overstand slightly to get around the crowd that's all stopped at the mark, it's usually not a bad idea. Like,
right, because they're ducking the currents
and tries to barely lay it, and then there's, you know, 20 boats all lined up going 0 knots right in front of you in a big cloud. So
there will be a lot of boats.
Yeah,
all right
so that mark is
shore.
always a choke point. You know, that and one the 2 most challenging marks to get around, I think.
Great point.
Unless you sail way outside and you're fast enough and you got breeze, then that's okay too.
Yeah, so the boat's coming in here. It's not going to be a secret to get in here, get out of current, and you're going to be packed up, and it's going to be hard to find a lane as you make this approach. And as boats start getting banged around in the current, it gets harder. So plan ahead of time, overstand if overstand for the current, and try to get around as clean and as efficiently as possible.
I would mention also that, I mean, if even on your going back to your practice day, if you have a chance to stick your nose onto that corner and get a feel for the strength of the current, because it's aggressive.
Yeah.
It bends around that corner pretty awesome, pretty strong.
Definitely does. According to Expedition, there's 2.3 knots of current in the middle of the island.
Yeah.
Okay, so next important thing to consider here, and this is true in the southwest or northerly for that matter, because land is so high here. This is the lighthouse southeast corner. This is a super high land, and I'm sure a lot of you have walked down the stairs. Even the southwesterly lifts off the water pretty far offshore, trying to get above this island. So it gets light as you get in here. This is a mark of the course, this little X here. So it's going to keep you off all these rocks. But just beware that is going, the closer you get in, the lighter it's going to be. So be aware of where you're going. If you're sailing light air and angles or jibing, you just got to be careful that you don't end up in less pressure than someone outside of you. Same applies, even more so if we happen to go around in a clockwise fashion in a northerly component breeze. The breeze just doesn't touch down for quite a while offshore. All right, southeast side. Just finishing up on this south. All of this is high cliff, so you got to be careful. The drop mark, they put a drop mark here now. Instead of, you used to just round the island, but every year somebody ended up on the rocks in here. So there's now a drop mark off here, which was pretty far offshore. This line isn't exact, but it was pretty far offshore to make the maneuver here safely away as well. So you're going to be, if you're bucking the current, there's not a lot you can do here. You can't go inside. And again, just don't get sucked up for any reason into shore, because it gets lighter and lighter as you go. As you make this turn, which hopefully will be a, let's see, we're hopefully a bear away, with pressure. If you're in light air and you're sailing jibe angles in the southwesterly, it is very tempting often to get sucked into land here on your jibe angles. And you're looking for pressure, or you see some pressure that's coming off the low spot and you see it touching down here. This is a mark of the course, but be careful not to get sucked into this little area here. It's generally light air. If there's pressure, you're probably not going to go anywhere near it. This is an irrelevant mark of the course. Your next one's up here, and you're just going to be sailing a straight line for your next mark. But if you're sailing angles, and it does happen often, just don't get caught in here. It's not worth it current-wise to get too far in here, because you get crushed with light air.
Yeah, and generally this leg of the race too, it's all about getting clear air and lane. So if you can stretch out, one jibe and get a little bit of extra room, sometimes that's okay too, especially further east.
Good point. Yeah, your next mark of the course, technically from this drop mark, is can 7, I think it's called. And so just avoid this area. All right, northeast side, this is the same thing. Here's that hollow that we just showed where Old Harbor is. And I put this slide in here because, again, if we're bucking current, this is a mark of the course, but you can find yourself in these shallows pretty quickly. So just be aware that a straight line in here is not necessarily a good thing. There's lots of low spots to hit. So this is not a mark of the course, this is. So just plan your course to keeping an eye on these low spots, but still ducking current. Obviously, you're going to have current relief in here in this deeper water than hundreds of feet of water out here. So just be aware. Here's where it starts getting a little hairy, and this is your final approach to 1BI and the exit. There's a bunch of stuff going on here. We have the shoal, really shallow, and those of you who have seen it know it's rough and bumpy, and you can see land a good part of the way out. Side note, if there's a lay day, walk out here to the North Light. It's spectacular. Anyway, your final approach as you come into here, because the current is hitting you and because you're turning your bow into that, it's going to get tight quick. So while you have spinnakers up and a southwesterly down here, you got to be prepared way ahead of time for either jib down, or if you have a reacher, whatever configuration you're in, it's going to change very quickly as you go in here. I've done this with a northerly kind of wind where we were beating to this, and it was some of the most terrifying sailing I've ever done, where boats were tacking in and out of here. And it seemed like everybody was going in every different direction. So have your plan, try to get out of the current, but if it gets hairy, be aware there's a lot of things happening very quickly. It gets deep. Once you get to 1BI, it sort of evens out here. So you can play this shore and hide from the current up until this obvious, the blue spot where it gets low, and then it quickly goes, I can't see 22, 42, it gets deep quick.
Yeah, and Tommy, I think just another point about the current here, like if the current's going the other way, right, you're going to end up sailing artificially low,
yeah,
right, to get to the mark. So it's just like, it just doesn't matter unless it's slack tide. You just be aware that you're going to either sail lower than you think you should or higher than you think you should. Right? Because the current's just going to tug you so hard one way or the other.
Well, and there's the land effect of the breeze as well. So the breeze is going to be shifty, it's
right.
If it's blowing out of the south. So you've got the land associated shifts messing with you as well.
If you have spinnakers up down here, make sure your jib is ready to go.
Right, exactly. Unless, or you've well practiced your code 0 peel.
Right.
Yeah, it gets hairy quick.
Yeah, and then like that corner down at the southeast corner one BI is another sort of, traffic point. So
Right.
have a plan coming into that mark, because, you could potentially, once again, like I said, if it's light, potentially have a lot of boats just sitting, drifting with the current, which is probably moving pretty fast. And you got to get around it without getting swept away or swept too early to the left.
Right. So it's good point, Jack. And Jack is saying that this is a choke point, meaning a lot of the boats end up here at the same time and converge on this. So there's a ton of traffic, number one, and you're round one BI and you're in foul current again. There's obviously, you're going to go look for current relief, and where's the very next current relief you can get? And that's tacking back in along this shore. You got to be careful here not to get sucked back onto the shoal. So your navigator's pretty darn awake here, and he's making sure you're not getting on the wrong side of this too early. There's going to be shifts here. You want to play the shifts, obviously, but your very first shot at current relief is to get back along this side. Again, there will be a lot of traffic here, so lane management is huge. All right, so 1BI to the finish. Here's Great Salt Pond. Your finish is somewhere right around here. This is no secret, but offshore, there's going to be more current than inshore. So early on, you're going to play the current by getting back along the shoal and getting into this more shallow area. However, you sort of run out of room or runway. It's hard to get current relief and not get too far overstood from where the mark is. So once you get into here, you can start playing shifts again. You're never going to keep going sailing down. It gets too light and strange. So you are going to play the shifts along sort of, let's call this the middle of the course now. You've got an edge here, which you'll if you're short tacking, I've never seen short tacking work. So play the shifts in the middle of the course, favoring the shore side a little bit. Again, it's hard to get, once you get out here, it's hard to get back into that shallow water. So don't kill yourself getting in there. Also, if it's breezy, wave action will be stronger out here. So you may want to come in, even if you have fair current, you may want to consider staying a little bit inside of our circle here to stay out of the larger waves, which usually build up right in here. I think that's about it for that. Jack, you covered, there's tons of traffic in here.
Yeah, so you think you're sailing pretty far offshore, but if you look at the rum line and the curve of the island there, actually, if you go a little bit out to the west, you're not really that far offshore, and sometimes you get a better angle anyway.
If you're looking at your chart, there's deeper water here, but it's shallower in here, so don't kill yourself getting right in. How are we doing on time? All right. Henry, you were going to say something there?
Well, I was just saying that going back to that previous slide, the race committee will typically finish you close to the breakwater there, but I've seen the finish being a good deal further out, depending on the fleet size and things. So it's a lot of times you won't even that shore will not even affect you because you have to be offshore by about a mile. So
right.
It depends on where the race committee wants to set up. I've seen it a lot of different ways.
It was generally a mile or so. It was up. It was you couldn't use the shorty advantage without overstanding. It was up here somewhere.
Right.
All right. Through this section, the word code zero, tweener, free flying jibs. There's all kinds of new terms, and every single person you speak to has a different idea of what a code zero actually is. So I asked Henry just to talk about modern reaching sails, which are all going to be used in the Around the Island and the navigator courses. But Henry, I'll let you take over from here and just yell when you want me to change slides.
There you go. Well, this picture is a pretty descriptive picture of the two ends of that reaching angle setup. That the one on the left is a Swan 42, I believe, with an A3 up, which is a broad reaching sail, basically with a higher clew and a flatter shape. Can be run with a furler, can be run without a furler in a conventional way. And it's to handle broad reaching angles where your runner becomes inefficient. Those of you guys who've one design sails, this is not something that you're going to be getting into, but the navigator guys, the guys in the green course, this is a really useful weapon. The boat on the right, I believe that's Benji's TP52. That shows a code 0 and a staysail. Code 0 is a very flat version of a reaching sail. We build them now in what we call a HELIX style of construction, which eliminates the need for big, heavy furling cables and allows the sail to fly out in front of the boat, and allows our designers to design a flatter, more forgiving shape sail, more of a Genoa type shape. So these sails are now actually becoming more and more versatile because they can be carried at higher angles more efficiently. That's a pretty good shot of that. I don't know if our faces allow that to be seen. Let's jump to the next slide quickly. The thing about code sails is they're affected by different rules in different ways. Those of you that are sailing PHRF, for the most part, have to carry what's called a 75% mid-girth 0. That first shot on the left shows that mid-girth, and it's shared between the luff cut and the leech cut of the sail, meaning the leech is round, and there's extra fabric there to be sure that it is measured as a small spinnaker within the PHRF rules. As you move to the right here, these sails, this is a 62 mid-girth sail in the middle. These sails are street legal in ORC and penalized in a lot less vicious way. The 55 mid-girth HELIX sail is largely a masthead Genoa, also allowed to be carried in ORC with a certain penalty, particularly in lighter air. The ORC rule is smart enough to rate these sails when you're in the breeze that you're going to use them in, and not rate them when the breeze is such that the rule assumes that you did not use them. The key to this conversation is that to purchase one of these sails or take advantage of one of these sails, you really need to know what rule and what angle you're looking for. A deep conversation with your sailmaker to be sure that you're headed down the right path with this without taking a big rating hit for a nice performance push is key. Any of these guys over here can help you with that. Next slide, please. If you can see both of these, this shows an old style code 0 on the left that has a hard cable in it and is the leading edge of the sail. On the right, if you can see, this is a HELIX sail, and the luff of the sail is actually flying proud of the straight line between the tack point and the head point of this sail, allowing the sail to carry a flatter overall depth or camber, and allowing it to be a lot less loaded for furling duties and things. So in simple terms, it's a higher performing sail with a lot more user-friendly features. Again, these sails, the HELIX style of construction can be used in any of these reaching forms, even in the more broad-reaching A3 styles. Is that the end of this slide section? I think I've got one more, don't I?
Yes, you do.
There you go. So again, that's the picture in the middle is a really good shot of one of these HELIX sails flying. And as you can see, the luff projecting in front of the straight line between the head and the tack of the sail. This allows us to spread the depth of the sail throughout the center of the sail and carry a flatter overall camber. If it was luff loaded, in other words, if that luff of that sail was pushed back to that straight line, we'd have to carry more roach out the leech, which is basically unsupported, meaning we'd have to add more depth to the sail. I hope that's simple enough.
Perfect, thanks. No,
Yeah,
I think
perfect.
the overall point is it's a conversation that comes up daily, and every
Right.
person you talk to and every boat has a different definition of what the sail needs to be. There is no one answer for every boat, so that's why we wanted to bring it up.
Yeah, I think that like I said, the key to us is to target the angle you're looking to sail or fill within within your boat's sail windows, right? And make sure that you talk to your sailmaker about that. These sails are custom designed and can be built for any wind angle and any style of use. So again, long conversation with your sailmaker and
Thanks, Henry.
designed correctly.
These are weapons that in the around the island that we just went through, the south side and sometimes the east side are where these things pay off huge. And the navigator courses, these things could be up all day long.
Right.
All right, Jack O, our service department is going to be where this year?
It's going to be in the next door to Deadeye Dick's again. We managed to get to lease that space, which is really good because it's close typically to the race headquarters, which I'm not sure where it is, but it's usually over next to the Narragansett or, where the tent traditionally is over by the Orr. So it's not far sort of from, central location for a lot of the boats and some of the activities. But it's a great space. It's got some room. It's easy to get to. And we'll have a couple sewing machines. We'll probably have 3 or 4 guys that'll come and to work on sales. But that being said, be aware that it is an island. We're not going to have a retail store with all kinds of battens and different things. So we'll have the bare minimum of those kind of things. We're there to do combat repairs. So don't expect like fancy recuts or anything like that. But it'll be good to have. If we get a windy day and we get a lot of sort of tears, we'll have some guys there to help out. But
each team should be bringing spare battens and sail tape.
Yeah, for sure. Don't show up on the island and say, oh, I forgot to bring 2 or 3 of my J105 battens. And it's like, well, sorry, it's an island. You're not going to be able to get those for a day. So sorry. But it'll be, we'll have some help and we'll have guys to help. And, and sometimes things can be fixed pretty quickly and pretty easily just with somebody that knows the right way to do it. So we'll have those guys there. And, and on top of the team of guys, salesmen and sales support guys that'll be sailing on a different boat. So I'm sure before we get to regatta time, we'll probably have something with the race in the race packet that'll explain where everything is. And then for sure we'll have a list of phone numbers and contact info for all of the sales guys, the North sales guys that'll be out there in case you need some kind of support.
Awesome. Thanks, Jack. And if I can add one thing, if you tear something, go to the loft immediately when the boat hits.
Yeah, don't wait till after the party.
Get in line quick.
Or after dinner or whatever.
I did a highly scientific study and research on what the best mudslide in Block Island was going to be, courtesy of Facebook. Number 1 was the Orr, hands down. There's no question about it. That is my personal favorite. Number 2 is Mahogany Shoals, otherwise known as Painstock, conveniently located next to the North Loft. Number 3 was Trader Vic's, which frankly I don't think is as good, but the scenery and it's perfect sitting on a dock. An honorable mention had to go to the Coastal Queen and Jim Bishop, who's no longer with us, but had so many great parties on Block Island, I couldn't resist but to put a picture there if you want. Quick note, North Sales East, North Sales Milford, the entire operation, production, accounting, sales, service, everything is moving to the Steelpointe Harbor facility in Bridgeport Harbor, right out over here. This building here, you can store your average 45-foot boat massed up in, and they're building another one. Our loft's going to be in the back here. It's under construction right now. We're going to be moving in there sometime in late June. It's a little fuzzy right now. But so we're packing up Milford and moving it down to Bridgeport, a little bit closer to West Long Island Sound. Port Jeff Ferry's there, so getting back and forth to Long Island becomes nice and easy for me. And that's it. Will, do we have any questions?
No questions.
All right.
Well, good to be sailing again, guys. It's been a long time.
Looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Block Island's
Yeah.
a good way to get it started.
All right. Well, if no questions, thank you everyone for joining.
We just had one question come in asking about current charts of Block Island.
Well, most of the Noble Tech, any of the GPSs these days have it. Expedition, the software has it. Does Predict Winds software have it now too? Do they have us predict wind, their site? I think
Not that I've seen.
Yeah.
okay. I mean, and you can go old school. You can use your Eldridge. I still have B currents, but Eldridge, any of the current charts, these currents are not changing rapidly except for around 1BI really. But use Expedition or use your Noble Tech, and then have your Eldridge type stuff, and use that as your database.
I think that the old school, there was a old school chart that was around that floated around in the 80s. And it might have been what they're referring to.
Did it look like this?
I haven't seen one for a while. I've used nothing but the electronic stuff for the better part of 15, 20 years now.
Are you talking about this, Henry, the old B currents? I still use it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great little tool, but I don't think you can get that anymore, can you?
No, I have a 2005 copy that I saved.
Yep, there you go.
One other question about COVID. Any issues that we've heard on island?
No, to be honest, I haven't heard any word on a tent yet. I frankly wouldn't assume there is going to be a tent, would be my guess. And I kind of think this is a great opportunity to sort of maybe reinvent a little bit of how we do things. And this counts for American Spring Series or this regatta or anywhere. I have a feeling there's going to be tailgate parties in the parking lot at the Orr. I think there's the Orr is going to be off. The docks are going to be a lot of fun. I think instead of going back and forth from the tent and cars, everybody's going to sort of party on the boat, then head home and do their thing. I think there'll probably be a lot of, boat parties at different houses. So I think this could be really fun and a unique change. I do love the tent and all, but I have a feeling this could be a bit even more fun and spread out and sort of block party style sailing. So
I just saw a note from Paul Zavatakis. He said he was inviting people over to his house.
Jimmy Buffett's going to be over there, right?
Did I see that right, Paul?
Yeah, Henry, I think there's more time for fishing, right?
Yeah, there you go. Everybody says thanks to Zabo. There you go.
I'll see him there. Anything else?
Yeah, looking forward to it, boys.
Yeah, I think it's been
awesome.
It's been a long, trying year, and I think the Block Island Race Week. This is so refreshing to have this happen. I'm so excited to go. I think it's going to be tremendous. Looking at the numbers of boats that are coming, I think I'm not alone in this. It's going to be terrific fun. So
it's going to be great.
Hopefully we have great weather and a great around the island race and everything else. It should be tremendous.
Happy spring, everybody.
Happy
All right.
spring.
Happy spring.
John Lindahl.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.